We have another viewer-requested video today, a request I've received multiple times. Lincoln Academy, near Crowder's Mountain, North Carolina. A site with strong historical relevance to the area, a legacy that has been shadowed in later occult activity and grisly crimes. I love my viewers. They know exactly the type of thing that will grab my attention. Aurora and Jericho Hill, this one's for you. Everyone loves a good, strange, weird, or bizarre story. Well, welcome to the American South, where dark legends and haunted history lurk around every corner. Where superstition, folklore, and a touch of backwoods magic blend with everyday culture. Some say, in order to survive. This is Dixie After Dark. In 1884, Miss Emily Pruden bought 50 acres of land in North Carolina in an area once called All Healing Springs. The location today is known as Crowder's Mountain, located in Gaston County. Being an educator and missionary, Miss Pruden's goal was to use the land to open up schools. This drive came from an early age. She had raised her late sister's orphan child, then went on to serve as the house mother at Brainerd Institute in Chester, South Carolina, remarkable at the time due to the fact that she had been deaf since the age of 17. Afterwards, Miss Pruden would go on to open 15 primary and secondary schools in western North Carolina in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. The land mentioned before at All Healing Springs would be her first endeavor. She would start Jones Seminary at the site, it later being known as Linwood College. Nearby on the same property, Miss Pruden also started Lincoln Academy in 1888, where the focus of today's story begins. Lincoln Academy was a boarding school for African American females, and through its existence boasted many young women to become doctors and lawyers after graduation. The school was in operation until 1955, when it was moved to Bessemer City, where it became Lincoln High School. It doesn't seem that the original building of Lincoln Academy was used for anything after that, and it was left to deteriorate. As with many buildings in this state, it became a hangout for vagrants, mischievous teens, and as is the case a lot of times in the South, rumored occult rituals. The area around the remains of Lincoln Academy started to have rumors of hauntings, probably due to the abandoned structures, overgrown land surrounding it, and the fact there was a remote cemetery across the road. Not all of the stories of hauntings, negative energies, and rituals are urban legends, though, and there is one in particular that I've had several requests to look into. Sunday, April 21st, 1974. 16-year-old Kathleen Ruth Smiley and her younger sister Patricia left their home in Atlanta, Georgia, where they lived with their mother, to meet their father, Dale Smiley, for breakfast about 5 miles away. The Smileys were separated, and the father was visiting from Minneapolis. After breakfast, Patricia and their father left to go to Lake Lanier for the day on a boat. Kathy said she'd join them shortly after going to pick up her boyfriend and her water skis. This would be the last time Patricia or their father would see Kathy. Kathy's body would be found later that day at the site of the ruins of Lincoln Academy by a local citizen, over 200 miles away in North Carolina, around 5 p.m., with stab wounds to the neck and chest. The crime scene was processed and an investigation was underway. Kathy was found gagged and tied to a tree with an injury to her head, along with 7 stab wounds. An hour after the body was removed from the scene, police were called back to the Lincoln Academy site due to the sound of an explosion. There they found a vehicle on fire. The vehicle in question was later determined to be Kathy's own Volkswagen, 75 feet from where her body had been discovered. A vehicle that wasn't there when the body was discovered. Kathy was identified by the charred remains of school books found in the trunk of the car, along with school transcripts that contained the contact information of Kathy's mother back in Atlanta. Gaston police started efforts on trying to reconstruct the events leading up to Kathy's death, and it wasn't long before the puzzle started coming together. According to police, shortly after meeting with her father for breakfast, Kathy called her mother around 10 a.m. that morning, stating she was low on gas, but that she would be there soon. Approximately 30 minutes later, police believe Kathy ran out of gas, and this is where 2 male suspects enter the picture, and a lot of gray areas. Police believe that after the 2 males in question helped Kathy get some gas, she drove them all the way to Gastonia, North Carolina. Whether that was voluntary or by force, they don't say. Witness accounts do show Kathy's car being seen in Bessemer City, North Carolina at 6:25 p.m., driven by 2 men. No female was in the car at the time. The 2 men were later identified as 25-year-old Pinky Thomas Mitchell and 21-year-old Wallace Charles Landford. Mitchell was also on the run as an escapee from Catawba County Department of Corrections since February 13th of that same year. He had been serving a 3 to 5 year sentence for automobile larceny. Landford had also served time for breaking and entering. While in jail, he complained of stomach pains. The jail's doctor recommended that he be hospitalized, and a court ordered Landford to be released under his own recognizance on a $1,000 bond to go to the hospital. Landford never went to the hospital and ultimately disappeared. 2 days after Kathy's body had been found, Landford had attempted to borrow money from a relative. Rather than giving them money, the relative called the police. A chase ensued, and Landford and Mitchell both were captured about 4 miles away from where Kathy's murder had taken place. The 2 suspects were driving a 1973 blue Datsun, which police say Mitchell took from his sister at knife point. Landford and Mitchell were charged with first-degree murder, interstate kidnapping, and felonious burning of personal property. Both men entered pleas of not guilty. In court, it was stated by witnesses that Kathy had been seen walking down an access road near a Shell service station in Atlanta around 10:15 a.m. on the morning of Sunday, April 21, 1974. Her Volkswagen was parked nearby, with its hazard lights blinking. Landford and Mitchell were identified by witnesses as being at the Shell station, and assisted Kathy in getting gas cans before the 3 returned to her car. Witnesses report nothing unusual happened at that time. Later that day, witnesses placed Kathy's Volkswagen in Gaston County, North Carolina. At that time, the 2 men were in the front, with Kathy spotted in the back seat. A witness in trial, an acquaintance of Mitchell and Landford identified as Rafferty, was said to have been picked up by them, where he got in the back seat with Kathy. They drove into a wooded area, where Rafferty reported that Mitchell said to Kathy, "This is it." Kathy was taken into the woods where Rafferty reported that Mitchell had sexual relations with Kathy while Rafferty and Lanford waited in the car. After Mitchell returned alone, Lanford is said to have left the vehicle and went to have sexual relations with Kathy as well. In Mitchell's testimony, though, he denies these events. He denies even picking up Rafferty or having any connection or conversation with this person. In Mitchell's testimony, he states that on April 21, 1974, he and Lanford was in Atlanta. They were smoking weed and drinking, and had made plans to hitchhike to Gaston County, North Carolina. While still in Atlanta, they spotted a girl walking down the road and struck up conversation with her. Kathy stated she had, quote, done dope before and wanted more, but that her car was out of gas. Lanford got a gas can and filled it up from the Shell station. Then Mitchell states that Kathy took them to a place to get more drugs, but no one was there. She then later produced some weed from her own dashboard. In Mitchell's story, the three continued smoking and drinking. Then Mitchell asked Kathy for a ride to North Carolina. She agreed on the condition that they provide her with enough gas. Before leaving Atlanta, Mitchell stated that Kathy called her mother. Mitchell claimed to have seduced Kathy on the drive from Atlanta to North Carolina, and after arriving, they went straight to the Lincoln Academy area of Gaston County, denying ever picking up Rafferty or the previous wooded area stop mentioned in Rafferty's testimony. At the site of the abandoned Lincoln Academy, Mitchell claims that he and Kathy had consensual relations, but when he asked for oral intercourse, Kathy refused. Mitchell stated it was then that he knocked Kathy to the ground, grabbed her by her hair, and stabbed her repeatedly. During this, Lanford grabbed Mitchell from behind in an attempt to stop him, but Mitchell threw Lanford to the ground, hitting him 3 or 4 times. At this time, Mitchell says that Lanford got up and ran from the scene. Mitchell stated the next thing he remembered, he was carrying Kathy's dead body through the woods, as well as hallucinating. He tied Kathy's body to a tree in a sitting position, then went to find Lanford in Kathy's car. After finding Lanford, the two went to Lanford's brother-in-law, identified in court records as Stewart. According to Stewart's testimony, Lanford told him, quote, "We done the big one. We killed a girl, murdered one," end quote. Mitchell then added, "Yeah, we did. That's her car." Lanford then asked for Stewart's car, but Stewart refused. Stewart basically called BS on the two's claims, and that's when Lanford tried to convince Stewart to come with them to see the body for proof. Stewart declined, and the two suspects then left in Kathy's Volkswagen. Stewart then testified that the two men returned about an hour later, saying the girl's body was gone. Stewart testified that the next day, Mitchell and Lanford returned, stating they had burned the Volkswagen and that the morning newspaper reports of the girl that had been found on Crowder's Mountain was the girl they had been talking about the day before. They were then driving a blue Datsun belonging to Mitchell's sister. The defense, at the request from Lanford himself, did not cross-examine Stewart. Mitchell testified that Lanford never touched Kathy and had nothing to do with the murder. Lanford never offered testimony in the trial. Pinkey Thomas Mitchell and Wallace Charles Lanford were both found guilty of first-degree murder and kidnapping and sentenced to life in prison. Both men went on to spend the rest of their lives in prison, both eventually dying while incarcerated. So, those are the facts of the case. Well, the documented facts, that is. But thanks to all of you that have helped my channel grow, Dixie After Dark now has some inside sources. Once word got out that I may be looking into the stories related to the Lincoln Academy location, I was contacted by a family member of one of the original investigators of the crime. According to them, this is the one case that haunted the investigator for the rest of his life. Based on that detective's memories and retained case files, everything in the news accounts and court filings match up, but there is some information missing from the official records. Even though Mitchell and Lanford were convicted of murder, the police wanted rape charges pressed as well, but the district attorney wouldn't pursue it. According to his own accounts of the investigation and personal notes from the time, there was no way Kathy Smiley's interactions with Mitchell and Lanford were consensual. There were clear signs of assault from the men as well as inanimate objects. According to this source, the knife in question was a small Swiss Army knife, and the fatal wound was one that nicked her aorta. It wouldn't have been a fast death, and this investigation shows clear signs of Kathy being tied to the tree with baling wire before her death. Kathy was gagged with torn pieces of Mitchell's own blood-stained shirt, indicating she was still alive when bound to the tree. Why else gag someone that could no longer scream? It's no surprise that this case bothered the investigator the rest of his life. Who wouldn't be? The site of Lincoln Academy at the time had already had a reputation of having occult things going on, something the investigator confirmed to his family member I worked with, and in 1974 it was a growing concern for local law enforcement. In 1974 alone, the same year of this crime, there were 49 murders in Gaston County alone. At the time, it was the county with the highest murder rate in the entire United States. It should come as no surprise that there are many reports of occult-type activity and rituals at this location, which accompanies tales of hauntings as well. Many claim to have experiences related to Kathleen Smiley. The remains of Lincoln Academy are long since gone, but the foundation of the building still remains, as well as the tree that Kathy was found tied to. Locals say the tree has been cut down more than once, but it continues to grow back. Some say that while at the tree, there is always the smell of rotting flesh. The most popular legend says that if you drive up to the tree and turn off your vehicle and headlights, your car will have trouble restarting. When it does finally restart, you'll see Kathy Smiley in your headlights, screaming, still tied to the tree. I feel like that may be more urban legend than anything, sensationalized to the memory of a crime that I'm sure is still fresh in the memories of many still in that area. We're only talking 50 years ago. But other accounts caught my attention, and I feel it's important to point out that legends of the site being haunted began before the world lost Kathleen Smiley. Stories of encountering unexplained mist or smoke at the site of Lincoln Academy, shadow figures, temperature changes, unexplained footsteps and voices, and even the sounds of children crying have been reported. In some accounts, people say they've been touched or pushed by unseen forces. Some have even reported seeing the spirit of an elderly woman. If you look away, then back, she's always closer than she was before. I haven't been able to find any connections to anything that would explain the ghost of an elderly woman being tied to the location, though. Some people report a dark, unsettling feeling in the air. Some even describe it as demonic. With the reported occult activity in the area, it seems plausible. I get it. Most of the alleged activity could be written off as rebellious teens doing crap for sheer shock value. I've seen many sites like this myself, but you have to remember, something draws them to areas like this. Think about it. Out of hundreds of BS supposed occult rituals, how many legit rituals would it take to open some sort of doorway or stain the land? Just one? What if they aren't all punk kids posing as something evil? It's not the ritual you do, it's the intention behind your actions that can get the demonic's attention. Besides, something is going on, because the campsite at Crowder's Mountain was shut down for 10 whole years due to perceived dangers from all the occultic activities in the area. Anyway, take that as a public service announcement. Not to mention that if you visit any site like this, locals will rat you out in a heartbeat. The crime was real, and local citizens just want to move on. They are always on the watch out to prevent anything like this ever happening there again. Someone simply driving to the location now will forever be considered suspicious activity. As far as Kathleen Ruth Smiley, saying it was a damn shame what happened is an understatement, and I can't find the words to say how I fully feel about this. I did read where a psychic medium visited the site and reports that the ghost of Kathy is not there, that she is resting in peace. I hope that's the case. Rest in peace, Kathleen. Rest in peace to you and to any others that may have been tainted, wronged, and stripped from this world at this location.